What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So today I want to show you guys this exchange between Senator Tuberville and an expert talking about Social Security. So it's important that we understand how these politicians feel when it comes to Social Security. I posted a video yesterday with Senator Tuberville talking about Social Security. And so I want to continue that by showing you a different video of Senator Tuberville talking about Social Security. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, if you guys can do me a favor, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification, and then click all. By clicking all, you'll get notified anytime we post a video. We do daily videos here, so by clicking the bell notification and clicking all, you should be getting updated every day. And just a reminder, thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter and Threads, you can at the TEC Show Live. Okay, so let's go ahead. I want to show you guys this really quickly, and then we're going to talk a little bit about this because there are a couple of things. And I'll have to say, I, for the most part, agree with what Senator Tuberville's saying, but the way he's saying it, there are a few things here that I want to key in on. And then the expert, she's going to talk a little bit about Social Security. And there's one thing that I think that she's saying that she's being very misleading, and I'll show you guys that. So let's go ahead and play the clip. Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for having this. This is interesting. And we all know that, as Mr. Stevenson said, a lot of us are retiring. I retired a few years ago, and then my wife told me to get me a damn job. So here I am today. You know, I've for 40 years paid max in Social Security, max, and probably paid close to $1 million in Social Security. And I think I get about $3,000 a month, maybe. And by the way, Social Security, for those of you who don't know, this group up here in 1983 voted to tax Social Security. And then a few years later, tax it again. It's all a scam. This is all a scam. I mean, we got people that's getting ready to retire that's going to try to live off $2,000 to $3,000. Impossible. It's
okay. And that's good that he's saying that. That is good that he is saying that, because there are proposals out there right now to increase Social Security benefits. There are proposals, a $200 raise for Social Security. Senator Bernie Sanders' plan is out there. Do you support that, Senator Tuberville? Probably not. And then we have the Social Security 2100 Act. That provides an increase for people who are on the lower end of Social Security benefits. Do you support that? Senator Tuberville probably doesn't. So it's interesting to hear him say it's crazy that people are not going to be able to live on $2,000, $3,000 a month. Now, to be fair, when it comes to Social Security is a supplement program. So you should have more retirement set up, and you should be receiving retirement from different places and then receive Social Security benefits as a supplement. If you're living entirely on Social Security, yes, it's going to be a struggle because it isn't enough. They say that Social Security should only supplement about 40%. But there are people out there that have worked their whole life, and they've worked in jobs that do not provide retirement, and they weren't able to save on their own. And so now they are struggling just receiving Social Security benefits. So we need to address those people, and we need to address the fact that Social Security, even for someone who is they have separate retirement set up, it's still not enough. And so we do need to look into increasing the Social Security benefits.
It's impossible, because what happens, it comes up here, we spend it. We're $35 trillion in debt. We don't have any money. We're dead broke. And then taxpayers have $2 trillion in credit card debt. We are in huge trouble.
Okay, and this is interesting too. I know I keep stopping it, but I just want the key points that he's talking about. I want to address some of those points. When he's talking about, and you hear lawmakers do this all the time, they're tying in the $35 trillion. He says $35 trillion. It's around $34 trillion. It's reaching $35 trillion, but it's not there yet. So $34 trillion he talks about. And then he talks about Social Security, and we don't have your money. And when the money comes in, it's spent. That is true. When Social Security benefits come in, the payroll contribution comes in, and it goes to pay the people who are currently receiving benefits. That is the way the system works. And so he's right about that. We did have a time years back where the payroll contribution, it was the same thing. Payroll contribution would come in, but we had a surplus. We had more people in the workforce than we had people receiving Social Security benefits. And so we had enough to fully pay out benefits, and then we had money left over, and that's the money that's sitting in a trust fund. So I just want to clear up some of the things that he's talking about there. Yes, that is the way the system works. But when you tie that 34 trillion or 35 trillion, like he's saying, to Social Security, it makes you believe that this money that's going to Social Security is adding to our debt, and it is not adding to our debt. That is separate. That's discretionary funding that he's talking about when he's talking about the 35 trillion. And then you have non-discretionary funding that's going to Social Security.
In this body, we had better start figuring that out, because we're going to have a run on this city here soon, and there's going to be about 150 million people coming up here saying, where's our damn money that we paid in?
Okay, now he's talking about 150 million people. I don't know where he got that number from. I think he just, it sounded good, but you have 70 million people, about 70 million people currently receiving Social Security benefits. So the 150 million, he's like doubling that for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is, but you'd have to ask him, where are you getting the 150 million from?
I could have put my Social Security money, 40 years, in tax, in the market, and probably be worth 8 to 10 million today. But the federal government wasted it. So I'll get off my horse there. But it's good that we have this, because we got, I get a little pension check from education. I was part of a union. It's not going to help people. People are going to have to continue to work longer and longer. Am I right, Ms. Gender? Can you say something about Social Security and it being taxed for some reason? We're taxing people for the second time on Social Security that they put into an account.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out, when Social Security was first founded, those who established it, it was started out as a 2% tax, and they said this will never take more than 6% of your income. Today it takes 12.4%, and depending on whether you go with CBO or Social Security trustees, it needs to take between 15.8 and 17.5%. So we're talking about thousands of dollars more per year.
Okay, now this is really interesting, and I don't want to let this go, so I want to talk about it right now, because I'll forget, and then I won't talk about it at the end of this video. So what she's talking about here, she's talking about the payroll contribution again. She's saying the tax, but the payroll contribution. Now, she's saying that it started at 2%, and the promise was that it would never go over 6%. Okay? Now, she said, what did she say? It's 12.4%. But guess what? It's kind of misleading, because if you look at, and I'll show you my little illustration again. I've been using the same illustration for the last few videos, but it's a very good, it shows us what most people are talking about when it comes to Social Security and how to reform it. So when we're looking at the 12.4%, she's getting that from these numbers here. Okay, so when you're working, you're paying in 6.2%. And your employer is matching that 6.2%. That is where we get the 12.4%. So in actuality, you're not paying 12.4%. Both you and your employer are contributing to that 12.4%. So realistically, right now, what's coming out of your paycheck is 6.2%. Yes, it is over that 6%, but it's 0.2% over that 6%. So I want to put that out there, because I want you to understand that when we're talking about this is what she's talking about. Okay? It would be much like if you're investing money. Let's say you're working and you have a retirement plan set up. Let's say you have a 401k plan set up, and you're contributing $100 per month. Now, your employer is matching that $100. And so that's $200 that's going towards your retirement every month. Well, you're not paying the $200. You're only contributing the $100. And so it's the same thing. So by her saying that, it's a little misleading. She's kind of saying 12.4%, and people are thinking, wow, I'm contributing 12.4%? That's a lot of money. Well, you're not, it's not all coming from you. It's coming from you and your employer.
It also was actually only originally recommended that the tax be up to $66,000, equivalent in today's dollars of earnings. But over time, it has expanded massively, and the money has been spent every year. So whereas everybody thinks this money's been set aside for me, no, for the past 13 years, every dollar that has gone out of workers' paychecks has gone immediately to pay promised benefits. And that's what happens when you have a system that enables those in charge of it to spend the money in the immediate term and leave the buck to the next generation that's coming along.
Okay, now, we've been doing this for, over 80 years? We've been doing the same thing. And we've been paying out benefits for, 80, I think it's like 81 years now. So it has been working for all that time. Now, you do need to tweak it. You do need to, there are some times where you're going to need to make some changes. And I gave the example, I think it was in yesterday's video, where I was talking about the fact that if you have a vehicle, even if it's a good vehicle, a vehicle that should last you for years to come, you still need to tune up that vehicle. You need to change your oil. You need to do little things to the vehicle. You can't just leave it alone, just drive it. You have to make changes. We haven't made changes to Social Security since 1983. It's time to make some changes. And that's the tough decision that's going to happen. But lawmakers don't want to talk about that. And so that's why Social Security is struggling right now, or we won't say right now, but in 10 years, it will be struggling because we haven't addressed it. We haven't made the changes. We haven't tuned it up. And so that's very important to mention when you're talking about this. You can't just say, well, it's just not working. Okay, well, why don't we fix it? That's the only option to fix the program.
Because Social Security has grown so much, it's actually to the detriment of lower income workers in particular, who have to pay such a large share of their paycheck to Social Security. They have little left to save for retirement. And then lower income and African American workers have the lowest life expectancies. So they are the most likely to get nothing back in return. 1 out of 4 African American men will die between the ages of 45 and 64 after having paid into this system for decades, tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they might get nothing back.
Okay, now, when she's, and he's going to ask her what the solution is, but she's talking about life expectancy for African Americans, for lower income is not as, it's, the life expectancy is shorter. And so when we're looking at that, okay, well, how are you going to solve that problem? Because right now you have some lawmakers talking about raising the full retirement age up even higher. And that's very popular among Republicans. They're talking about raising the full retirement age. Let's face it. That's going around. A lot of lawmakers are saying that. And so she's going to go into the solutions, and we'll take a look. Listen, here we go.
The solution.
I think we ultimately have to shift towards a universal benefit system. That's what true social insurance is. It does not make sense that we are paying the biggest benefits to the highest income earners. So gradually over time, I think we need to bend down the benefits for the middle and upper income earners, actually increase them for the lower income earners.
Now, I agree with this. Now, I've heard this before. You've heard some lawmakers bring this up. I think Senator Cassidy is one that's bringing this up. Chris Christie, when he was running for president, he brought this up where we need to kind of balance it. So the people who are receiving a lot of money in retirement, like Senator Tuberville, got a pension, he's got some other things going on, money that he's receiving, then for those people, you're going to have to bring it down a little bit. So they're not going to be receiving as much as they've been receiving. And then on the lower end, you bring it up, so you give them an increase. So I agree with that.
Look at things like indexing retirement age to life expectancy, more accurate inflation index, and I think that workers need an option to have their money in something that actually earns a positive rate of return and that can't just immediately be spent by Congress.
Okay, now that last part there, and I'm going to end it with that because I want to talk a little bit about what you're saying. This is very, very important. And she was talking about the indexing, and I don't know exactly how they're going to do that. How do you calculate that? You raise the full retirement age when people live longer, but what about if our life expectancy is starting to drop, which we've seen in the past, and right now we're kind of stagnant? What do you do with retirement then? And are we in a situation where now we're looking at retirement and thinking, okay, well, what's the life expectancy? Because that would mean that I can retire at maybe 67 as opposed to retiring at 69. If the life expectancy goes up a couple of years, now I can't retire until I'm 69. And so it will be going up and down. It just doesn't make sense. How are you going to be able to retire if you don't have a set year, in place? So I don't know how she would work that out. But I want to talk about this whole notion here when it comes to taking money, allowing people to invest money. And we've talked about this before. And this is where I disagree heavily in what she's saying, because we're talking about a program now that is, and she said it herself, you receive money, and let's just look at it. We'll look at it again. So you have the 6.2% that you contribute, your employer contributes 6.2%, that goes to Social Security, the Social Security Administration. They take that money and they pay out benefits. Now that's not enough, and that's why they're pulling from the trust fund as well to pay out benefits. Okay, right now it's about 23% that they're taking from this 2.7 trillion in the trust fund. So what she is saying is she's saying you should have an option. So you can take out some of this 6.2% and you can invest it in the stock market. Okay, so you can invest it on your own. And what's the problem with that? Well, what the problem with that is that you take some out, that 6.2%, that's less money going to the Social Security Administration, which means that you're going to have to rely more on the trust fund. You're going to need to rely more on the trust fund because you have less money coming into the Social Security Administration because you're taking some of that money out and you're investing it in the stock market. And so that simply will not work. It just won't. It might work for people who are younger, but the people who are currently receiving benefits, it's not going to work for them because eventually the trust fund will run out of money because it's going to be taking more money in order to send out benefits. And when that trust fund runs out of money, now you're only receiving money from the Social Security Administration, and you're receiving a reduced amount because, like we said, this money is coming out and going into the stock market. So now you're taking some of the contribution out, putting it in the stock market. You have less money in the Social Security Administration to send to beneficiaries. You have no money left in the trust fund. And so now we're just watching people receiving Social Security benefits. It's just going to continue to decrease. And so they said in 10 years, it would be if the trust fund completely runs out of money, it's to be about 23% cut. Well, guess what? Every year after that, it's going to continue to dwindle because you have less money going to the Social Security Administration. So hopefully that makes sense. That's why this whole privatized Social Security are allowing people to take money out of their contribution and put it into the stock market. That's why it's not going to work. Now, it will work for corporations. It will work for people who are invested in the stock market because that's going to boost up the stock market. Now you have more money going into the stock market. And let's say you have 70, I don't even know how many people are currently working, but let's say you have a whole workforce that's paying into this payroll contribution, and now they can take a percentage of what they're paying into the payroll contribution and put it into the stock market. And that is going to really help the corporations because they're going to have more money going into the stock market. It will help our economy as well, but I'm just saying that's who it helps. The people who are receiving benefits, it's not going to help them because now we're going to see the trust fund deplete much faster. And once it depletes, if they don't have anything else set in place, then guess what? Now we're in a situation where people are going to start receiving reduced benefits, and it's going to continue until they fix it. And so that's all I wanted to talk about in this video. Just kind of wanted to go over this exchange. I think it was a pretty good exchange. Some of the stuff I do agree with, but a lot of the stuff that they were saying, I don't agree with. It just doesn't make sense. Okay, so and Senator Tuberville, he's kind of, he's in a situation where he's more well off, right? So he's got the pension coming in. He has the Social Security, but he's maxed out at Social Security. So he's receiving the Social Security benefits. He's now working as a senator And so now he's receiving $174,000. I think he's about 69 now. So he receives his full $174,000 for being a senator, as well as his pension and his Social Security. So he's doing all right. And so he's probably pulling in 15,000 plus. I mean, he's kind of what we would call back in the day when I retired, they were saying, well, you can double dip. You can retire, get your pension, and then go work somewhere else. That's what he's doing. He's double dipping. He's working somewhere else. He's receiving a good salary, plus he has Social Security and a pension. So I want to know what you guys think about all this, so let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.